there, and welcome to the Transparently Jordan podcast, where I'll be talking with a new guest each week, and we'll be covering topics in health, fitness, lifestyle, and so much more. So stick around and let's get into today's episode.
And we were talking about what is the time to go and seek mental health support? Like, when's the right time? And he said, whenever you have that question, when's the right time? That's the right time, right? And it's so simple, but I love that comparison. So I think just starting saying something, seeking support the instant you feel something, don't wait till you're too far down the rabbit hole.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode, and my first episode in a long-ass time. This is, I guess, technically the unofficial season 3 of the podcast. I say unofficially because I don't really have seasons, but I do kind of have seasons because I go through these long ass breaks where I don't post for like a month because I'm exhausted and because really I just need a break. So I create seasons in my head. But welcome back to another episode, and a very exciting episode, I think. Before we get into all of that, we're just going to chat and we're going to do what we always do. And I'm going to share things that maybe I shouldn't be sharing. I am going to just talk my head off because you all know how much I like to talk. How have you guys all been doing? I hope well. It is, I think, the day after the day of Valentine's here in Australia, and I don't know if you all had a good Valentine's. I was single like I have been the last lots of Valentines, so mine was just perfect. I think I reported like 50 posts on Instagram of cute ass couples posting, "Oh my God, I love you. Oh my God, you're my world." I was like, get the fuck out. I do not want any happiness on my newsfeed. Report, hopefully Instagram takes it down because I'm a petty bitch. You guys, I have gotten to that point where I'm just like petty and I'm just like, I don't want to fucking see it. Ew, you're happy. I don't want you to be around me. I'm bitter. I am petty. I don't care. So that was my Valentine's. I had a whole bunch of ice cream and a whole bunch of chocolate, and I sat on my couch, read my book for the entire day, and did absolutely nothing. So I think it was a Valentine's well spent. I mean, if you all listening right now and you have a significant other, then power to you. I hope you had an amazing Valentine's. But if you're like, fuck it, like me, then, fuck it. Now, I know last episode I said that I'm going to start maybe talking about some podcasts that I've been listening to recently, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. Since the last time I have uploaded a podcast episode, which was like maybe a month ago, I have not listened to any podcasts. I mean, okay, I have not listened to any new podcasts, I should say. I have listened to My Favorite Murder. I think Sophia with an F has had a new episode. So just, the usual suspects. I've been listening to them. But even those two, like, I don't think I've been listening to them that routinely. So that has been weird for me. I have not been listening to a lot of podcasts. What I have done or been doing that I am so excited to talk about, it is super nerdy, but I don't give a shit, is I have smashed out so many books the last month. I am up to book, I think right now, 7 out of the 52 for the entire year that my goal is to read. My goal is 52 books out of the entire year. I am on book 7 right now, and it is called Protecting Jacob. It is based off of the Apple TV show is based off of this book. And I don't have Apple TV. I've never watched the show. I think it's a new show anyways. But this book is freaking amazing, you guys. It is essentially about a a DA agent, I think it is, who has a son who was accused of murder. This son is 14 years old, and it's just like a movie in your head. You know what I mean? Like, you know those books that you read and you can like actually see scenes in your head? It is so amazing. It is so suspenseful, and like I like criminal kind of shit. So it's just like you get like what's it called? Jury or not jury, what's it called? A jury room, court. Oh, you get court scripts. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. You get like court scripts in it, and then it kind of goes back and forth. It like jumps between scenes, past and present. It's just super well written, and it is so suspenseful. I love it. I have books 8 and 9 lined up as well, but I've essentially read the first 2 Harry Potters in the last month. I am on the 3rd one right now. I read a whole bunch of books in January, but yeah, I've read the first 2 Harry Potters. I've read the Gone series, which is another kind of like teen-ish series that I read when I was younger and I just wanted to reread. The Alchemist. I read The Alchemist for the first time by Paulo Coelho, I think is how you say the author's name. Classic book. So amazing, so life-changing. I may have talked about it last episode. I don't remember, so I'm not going to talk about it again, but just an amazing book. I have a whole bunch of other titles from this author on my list, but books 8 and 9 are, the first book is Are You Sleeping? I checked it out of the library yesterday, and that is again written, or one another Apple TV episode is based off of this book. I think the show is called Truth Be Told, which I've listened to, and it's essentially about this podcaster who is a criminal podcaster and is looking into a murder. And I watched the show when it first came out like a year ago, and it was such an amazing show. Again, so suspenseful and like just super well written. So I'm looking forward to that book. Another book that I am reading, or not reading, I plan on reading, is The Tattooist of Auschwitz. I think that's how you say it. But this book was a recommendation from Jaden, whom maybe I'll post his Instagram. I don't remember what his Instagram, but he's the one who actually gave me the idea of reading 52 books out of the year. That's what he's doing, and I'm gonna read the summary of the book on the back for you because it looks so amazing. But okay, here it is: The Tattooist of Auschwitz. So Lael, I don't know how to say his last name, but Lael is a well-dressed and charmer, a ladies' man. He is also a Jew. On the first transport from Slovakia to Auschwitz in 1942, Lael immediately stands out to his fellow prisoners. In the camp, he is looked up to, looked out for, and put to work in the privileged position of I think that's in like German. I don't know how to say the next word. The tattooist. To mark his fellow prisoners forever. So he's basically a tattooist that marks his prisoners. One of them is a young woman, Gitta, who steals his heart at first glance. His life is given new purpose. Lael does his best through the struggle and suffering to use his position for good. That is the summary, and you know, it's like Lael maybe a little bit of a bad boy, you know what I like. And I think it's like a love story, but it's based on an incredible true story, it says on the beginning of the book, and it just looks amazing. I have an image of what Lael and Greta look like in my head, and it is pretty hot. But I am so excited about this book. That is book 8 or 9, depending on if I read Are You Sleeping first. And yeah, that is my nerd out session, you guys. Those are the books that I am looking forward to reading. I, of course, love reading. So that is what I've been doing the last month. The last like 2 days, I've been reading Defending Jacob, and I am, I think, on page like 300 of 500 right now. I am pretty sure I'm going to finish it in the next day or two. It is that good. And Other than that, I've just been busy with school. Like y'all know, I am like 2 weeks left, which I am so stressed about. I have 2 weeks left of this like intensive block, and then I have my final exams ever of my entire program. Like the second week of March that I'm kind of prepping for right now, and then I'm done. And it's just basically a year of unpaid work, which yay, but placement is my favorite thing. I like actually doing things and actually helping people. So I am looking forward to that. Not looking forward to not getting paid and, basically working for free, but looking forward to actually working. So that is what I've been doing. I have been watching a lot of cartoons or an anime specifically. I've been rewatching Dragon Ball, the original Dragon Ball. I think like the 1985, I think it came out, 80s, somewhere in the 80s it came out. I'm on season 1 right now, and I just love that show. um, it's awesome, and yes, again, I'm a fucking nerd, and I don't care about it, but that is what I have been doing. That is my very long, I guess, monthly recap. We have to talk, you guys. We have to talk about the Super Bowl. And no, I don't mean the actual Super Bowl, like football. I mean, hello, football, sports, what the fuck? I mean the halftime show specifically. Now, we are going to talk, you guys, because the Weeknd. So, don't get me wrong. The Weeknd is incredibly talented, fucking amazing voice, super amazing songs, #1 album, has sold 1 million albums. His halftime show, you guys, he stood there and he sung. Now, I know with COVID and all, there was probably restrictions and whatnot. But what I am angry with is not specifically the Weeknd's performance. I don't know who the hell chooses these performers. Pepsi, Super Bowl, NFL, whatever. You guys, and when I say you guys, I mean NFL, I mean whoever chooses these performers, put my queen, put arguably one of the most talented artists, yes, one of the most controversial artists, but also one of the most talented artists, Miley Cyrus, as the fucking pre-show. You put Miley Cyrus as the appetizer to the Weeknd? I am still fuming. Fucking fuming, you guys. Miley Cyrus is not the fucking appetizer. She is the 5-course main meal. And you put her the appetizer to the Weeknd. I am pissed. You put the iconic Miley Cyrus, who has broken records that the Weeknd hasn't broken. Yes, the Weeknd has sold so many albums and he's been #1 and whatnot, but when it comes down to it, and I know my pop culture, y'all, Miley Cyrus has broken records. She is an icon in the industry. And you put her as the fucking pre-show. Ugh. I am still fuming, as you can tell. Her performance to the pre-show was amazing. In my opinion, and of course this is all my opinion, her performance was a gajillion times better than the Weeknd's halftime show performance. She has energy. I'm not going to say she can sing live because, she can sing live, but so can the Weeknd. So that's not a fair comparison. But her performance was amazing. She brought out Billy Idol, another fucking icon, Joan Jett. She performed amazingly. She had energy. She has so many classics that she performed. And you put her as the fucking pre-show. That's all I have to say, because I'm so angry to talk about it even more. So let's just stop it there. Y'all know how I'm feeling about this. I don't like it. She better be the Super Bowl halftime show one of these years, because let me tell you, you did her wrong, Super Bowl. You did her mad wrong. let's get into maybe today's topic, which is mental health. I have done a bunch of episodes on mental health before. My very first episode of this podcast with Laura from the Sisterhood podcast is on mental health, and it is still, I think, one of my most listened to episodes ever. It's just a topic that, again, people, I think, scare away from talking about. I don't give a shit about talking about mental health, about my personal mental health. I have talked about my personal mental health a lot on here, shared some things that maybe were a little bit too personal, but, you know, whatever. That is just me. I like oversharing. But mental health. So essentially this episode, we're talking about some anxiety. We're talking about social media and mental health. We're talking about how you can maybe go out and seek mental health. We're talking about medical practitioners and mental health. It is a jam-packed episode, and I am excited for you all to hear it. But the reason why I wanted to talk about mental health again is because, again, it's a super important topic. It's something that not a lot of people talk about, and it's just something that I think the more you talk about, the more you can normalize it. And it being 2021 right now, and us having worldwide a long ass 2020, and now even 2021, mental health is a super important topic, and it's a topic that I think more people are interested in listening to, more people are needing to hear, and a lot of people are experiencing mental health struggles currently. So I just thought it would be a cool thing to talk about. It is something that I am always open to talk about, and I'm happy that this guest is talking about it a little bit more with me, because you all know I like to have people more smart than me talking about these things, because I could just blab about absolutely nothing and go on and not make sense. So it was awesome to be chatting with this guest. And yeah, maybe let's get into today's episode. So today's episode is with Zachery, who is a fellow Canadian studying in Australia as well, another state, but is super big on social media on mental health, and specifically on mental health. So he posts on mental health and his, I guess, personal things with mental health, and just posts them to see if other people relate to them or whatnot. And it's super awesome. I think a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't talk about mental health, especially men. So it was a cool thing to see. Which is why I wanted to have him on the podcast to chat a little bit more. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Let's get started. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I am looking for supplements, I am looking for quality. I am looking for something to taste amazing. I am looking for all of that, but I am also looking at price. Is this supplement affordable? Am I able to get everything that I am wanting from this company, or am I going to need to shop at 5 different stores just to get what I want? That is not the case with MyProtein. MyProtein is a supplement company that has everything and anything, you guys. It even has gym clothes. You can get amazing looking gym clothes on MyProtein. Now, MyProtein is a supplement company that has great tasting supplements. It has great quality supplements and things that are extremely affordable. So again, if you are a student like me and you do not have hundreds of dollars to spend on supplements because things add up, definitely check out MyProtein. I love the My Vegan range at MyProtein. Being a plant-based and vegan athlete, I, of course, look for vegan supplements, and My Vegan range has anything and everything that I am looking for. It has all of the vitamins and minerals I am looking for. It has the protein I am looking for. If I am wanting BCAAs, it has it there. It also has so many snacks on there and so many food items on there. I can get a 5 pound, or is it 5 kilograms? I think it's even 5 kilograms of rolled oats, you guys, on MyProtein for dirty cheap. I can get natural peanut butter on MyProtein for dirty cheap. It is so amazing. So, if you are looking for a supplement company that has anything and everything all in one place, then definitely head to the show notes, you guys, and click the link to shop at MyProtein. All right, everybody. I'm sitting here with Zachery on this lovely morning. How are you doing, Zachery?
I'm doing amazing, Jordan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Now, Zachery is fellow Canadian. That's correct, right? I didn't just make that up.
That is true. That is
Yeah.
not false.
And he is studying in Australia as well. So essentially, I want to have Zach on the podcast to talk about some mental health tips. He has an awesome Instagram that I found through Oztrek, which I know I've talked about on the podcast before. It's kind of this thing that some of us Canadians go through to study here in Australia. So yeah, thanks for being on the podcast, Zach. Do you mind maybe just starting by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So first and foremost, thanks for having me, Jordan. I'm really excited for this. So my name's Zach. I'm Canadian, like Jordan said. I'm from a small town called Windsor, Ontario, which is about 3 hours south of Toronto by the border of Detroit. My story is I'm a former college dropout. I failed out of college when I was 18. I had a 0.59 GPA. My dean told me, Zachery, college isn't right for you. My parents said, move out. I lost all my friends. And I was just in a really bad headspace. At the time, I wasn't aware of it. I was 18 and really wasn't self-aware. But over the next 5-6 years, I did whatever I could academically to essentially prove them wrong. So it wasn't from the right perspective, but it got me to the point where I was ready to now apply to medical school. And I had about a year before starting medical school. And I'm like, holy smokes, I kind of have a story here. So what I did one day is I popped out on Instagram my transcripts, my freshman year transcripts, and like said my story. And I was blown away. There was this one like and one comment and one DM. It was only one person. But this guy from Vermont, where he just shared his story of his struggle and how much it means to him. And like, it blew me away that social media can be used for good, essentially, that day. So over the next 3-4 months, every single night, I would host an Instagram live with a medical student, a resident, a doctor somewhere around the world. And I was learning that there's like this mentor-mentee continuum, right? Where you're channeling and passing down knowledge back and forth along this continuum. And people that were on the other end, like farther down the continuum than me, they were really comfortable and more open with sharing their stories of vulnerability and just the obstacles and struggles that they face that they overcame. So I created a formula through this experience called vulnerability equals relatability equals empowerment. So everything I shared on social media is with that formula in mind. Now it's mental health based, not academic based, but the same perspective. So this test prep company reached out to me. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. You're from North America, called Exam Crackers. And they said, we love what you're doing. How would you like to travel North America and speak at pre-medical conferences to empower students? And I'm like, just from sharing my transcripts, like a college dropout, I'm like, that's amazing. So I did that. And I love that. That's probably the best experience of my life. And then January 2020 happened. I started medical school here at the University of Sydney in Australia. COVID happened. I tore my ACL, so I had knee surgery. So my physical activity or my workout, which is my outlet, I lost that. I went through a 6-year relationship breakup, which I didn't know at the time, but that was really my identity and like my source of happiness. Medical school was challenging. I couldn't go back home, and all these things just started piling on to like a breaking point almost for me. And I was like, okay, I have to do something about this, right? First off, I'm probably not the only one. So I sought after counseling service and I saw a psychiatrist. And one of the most important things they told me through that experience was to journal your thoughts, right? Because for you, I don't know yourself, but I know maybe a lot of your listeners are overthinkers like myself, where I'll have the same thought and it'll just keep reoccurring. And it's not really getting me anywhere tangible. So I thought to myself, I can write these thoughts down in a journal and a piece of paper, or I can kind of do what I did with my report card or my transcripts, and I can just throw them out there on the internet and see if it connects with anyone. So I did that with TikTok. And I think as being a male who's a medical student in an undersaturated platform, it just snowballed to kind of where we're at today. And that's kind of like the quick version of the story.
Yeah. Awesome. And that's super interesting to me. Because of course, I mean, social media has exploded over even the last 5 years. Even TikTok, I mean, TikTok is fairly new, I think, like 2 or 3 years old, and even that is massive now. And I think social media is an interesting thing because it it definitely has its positives, but there's always its negatives, like everything. And you hear a lot more of social media and the effects or the negative effects of it, how it has on people. There's documentaries on it now, there's all of this, but you rarely hear the positives and how it helps people and how it can benefit people and bring people together. So I find that super interesting. And maybe that can bring us into the first thing I want to talk about was how you're kind of using social media. I know you mentioned it a few ways or a few ways already, but how you're kind of using social media currently um, in a positive light for people.
Mhm. Yeah. So I use my social media platform as social proof through the following and the comments and the likes and the shares that people are not alone. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not licensed in any perspective. I'm not trying to diagnose anyone. I'm just trying to provide people the proof, the social proof that they're not alone, to give them the confidence and then therefore seek the support that they deserve. I think that's one of the most challenging things of 2020 and COVID is the isolation and loneliness, right? So through this, we haven't talked about it yet, but me and my good friend, who's the co-founder, Jake Goodman from the US, he's a psychiatric interviewee. So he'll be a resident very soon. I don't know the proper terminology there. We started a company called the Mental Health Movement, and it's all premised around what my shirt says right here. You matter most. So it's a clothing brand to start the conversation. We have a podcast. We started a scholarship. We donate monthly to nonprofit mental health organizations around the world. American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, Voices of Hope in New Zealand. We're currently in the process of working with Mates in Construction in Australia. So we're doing a ton of these projects. And then on top of that, every Sunday night, I host a Zoom event where I'll bring in, I call it the YMM fam. So You Matter Most stands for YMM. And that's kind of like how this thing started and snowballed. So we'll bring on like 100 of them and we'll have a guest. So this guest last week we had was Dr. Steph, and she's a family practitioner in New Zealand who spoke on how to tell your doctor that you're struggling with your mental health. And each week we'll bring on a new guest where they'll bring insight and advice and essentially just providing a community of people seeing that other people had the same questions or same thoughts and just, yeah, banding together through these really challenging times. So there's not one thing, there's just a bunch of things that we're always just trying to do my
Right.
best to help.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and you actually said a lot of things there that I definitely want to break down, and a lot of things that I want to get into. So that was awesome. But one thing that maybe I want to start with that you brought up was how people can start the conversation. I think mental health and talking about mental health can be super uncomfortable for people, especially men. I think a lot of men, even nowadays, don't like to talk about mental health. There's still this stigma around it. So how do people start the conversation? Where do people start? Because it is a tricky thing, you know. It's very personal, I think, to some people, and some people may not want to talk about it. Some people may not know how to go about it, and there may be a right and wrong way to do it. So where do you see people starting the conversation?
So I don't think there's a right and wrong way. I think it's a really great question, but I don't think there's a right and wrong way. And I think that was something I struggled with a lot, which made me hesitate to actually seek support was, am I wording this properly? Am I fully explaining myself in the right light? Like all those thoughts of like, how do I say it properly? As opposed to just telling someone that I trust, hey, I'm just not doing the greatest. It's been a really tough month, really tough week. I just went through breakup. Medical school is hard. I'm feeling kind of lonely. Just something to snowball, just to get that conversation open with someone you trust, I think is everything. And for me, I was speaking with he's a psychiatrist from Melbourne, and we were talking about what is the time to go and seek mental health support? Like, when's the right time? And he said, whenever you have that question, when's the right time? That's the right time, right? And it's so simple, but I love that comparison. So I think just starting saying something, seeking support the instant you feel something. Don't wait till you're too far down the rabbit hole. And I think for me personally, and I don't know yourself, I use these things called like diffusers. So like I'm much better at speaking while I'm like playing basketball, going out in nature, or doing some form of activity with someone that I trust or like, and then having the conversation versus just saying, let's sit down on the couch and talk about my feelings. Cause that's just not how I open up. So I think knowing your language to speak and who is the one that's going to receive it, when's the best for them to listen.
Right. I really like that, the diffusers thing, because it can be, I think, sometimes awkward too, sitting on the couch and just bringing it up. I know I have friends that I chat about anything with, and a lot of the times when we're talking, it's when we're out and about doing things rather than when we're laying around on the couch. When we're doing that, we're basically just on our phones, not talking at all. So I really like that diffuser concept because I think it's exactly what the word describes. It diffuses the uncomfortability of talking about mental health. Another thing I really like is therapists. You're saying that you're seeing a psychiatric doctor. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've seen a therapist before. I still see a therapist about so many things. And I just think it's nice having that conversation with somebody who's actually qualified um, rather than talking about things with a friend. It's a little bit of a different scenario. It's a little bit, you get different advice, you get a different kind of mindset when you're talking about that. And I think what people may struggle with when deciding to see a therapist or wondering if they're wanting to see a therapist is it being weird. And I think, it being 2021 now and us going through a long 2020, I think a lot of people probably are wanting to see a therapist or should see a therapist. And I just think it's important to remember that it's not a weird thing to see a therapist. It can be helpful. Yeah. So now tell us more about the business that you're created with your partner.
Yeah, so it's called the mental health movement. Essentially, Jake and we started this thing, I say in July of 2020, but we did like a few like Instagram lives with helping students with the MCAT and how to get into medical school in these lives. And we just vibed and we just like really connected off one another. He's more, I guess, type A, where I'm more type B, I guess, in terms of personality. He's like very by the books, very like properly ordered. I'm just more like this creative mind thinking all over the place. So what he brings, I don't bring, and like vice versa. So we just really connected really, really quick. So we're like, we want to create change. Mental health is something we're both passionate about. What's something we can do? We're like, we can start a podcast. Okay, cool. We started a podcast, but we wanted to do more. We wanted to make mental health as cool and as normal as possible without sensationalizing it. And there's a really fine line with that, especially when you're trying to grow a company around mental health, right? So it has to be. So we know we want to create clothing because the biggest thing Jake and I wanted to see was people on the streets wearing like "You Matter Most" or someone just going up and saying, "Yo, what does that shirt mean?" Or "What do you mean mental health movement?" Like just like having that conversation of two random people on the street was what our biggest goal was. But we knew if we're creating clothing around mental health, it can't just be clothing. There needs to be scholarships. There needs to be speaking events. There needs to be like nonprofit campaigns and other things just to show like the truth of what we're doing. So we started finding all these outlets of just bringing this family together, YMM fam. So we have like TikToks, Instagrams. And the coolest thing about it is I've actually never met Jake in person. Never
Okay.
met Jake once in my
Oh, wow.
life.
That's interesting.
Yeah, this is like this is the biggest biggest thing I've ever done. And I've actually never met him. I was invited to his wedding, which was in May, but that's actually now postponed until next year. So
Uh,
hopefully sometime this year I can go back to the States and connect with him. But it's been, yeah, it's just been a lot. It's been a lot of like things coming together. We can
yeah.
talk more specific if you want.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Because I think creating a business around mental health can be a challenging thing for some, but it's something that's so important and you don't see a lot of. I think people are intrigued by it and not even intrigued. I think a lot of people need it. A lot of people need businesses to talk about mental health specifically, not another business that maybe brush ups on mental health, but that's not their main focus. I think there's not a lot of businesses out there that mainly focus on mental health. So that's super awesome. And I also think it's interesting, especially having someone like yourself being in medical school talking about mental health. You brought up a point earlier. I believe her name was Dr. Steph. You mentioned. about how she helped try to educate people on how to bring up mental health with your doctors. And me thinking about a doctor going to see my family practitioner, I would not think about talking about mental health with her. So I think that's super interesting. Um, Talking about mental health with your doctor. And I guess it leads me into my next question, which would be, how do you see mental health maybe working into your future practice, if you do at all?
Yeah, I think mental health would encompass all of my practice. I was speaking with, like I said, Dr. Steph. She's not a psychiatrist, she's a family practitioner, and she was explaining that 30 to 50% of her cases that aren't mental health have a large mental health component. And she thinks now, with obviously COVID in 2020, that those statistics have increased. So I think whether or not psychiatry is the future, that I think that is something that will be at the forefront. I think it's very apparent. Um, and I think 2020 is obviously manifested more mental health, I guess, issues or concerns to people. But I think it's raised an ultimate awareness that's going to cause change once we get out of this
Mhm.
pandemic, so to speak.
Yeah, I definitely think it's brought up a lot of um a lot of things about mental health that we didn't think about before. And it's hopefully changed some people's views on mental health and the importance of it. And that's actually a good segue into talking about COVID and mental health, because it's something that I wanted to touch upon. Because COVID, I mean, not talking about COVID specifically, but mental health, I think it has definitely changed a lot of people's daily routines. Someone like myself, I've talked about this numerous times already on the podcast, but physical activity, for example, for me is my escape as well. It's something that I like to do to just kind of de-stress and hang out with my friends, go to the CrossFit gym and have fun and do weird, crazy things. So not having that for basically, I mean, here in South Australia, we were shut down. The gyms were shut down for maybe 3 months, but those 3 months were the longest 3 months of my life. And I know there's people out there that are still like, year have gone by with no gym and no outlet and staying at home and transitioning from classes, let's say, to doing things on your own. So how has your time through COVID be? And have you had to adopt any measures to kind of de-stress or work on your stress levels?
I guess, yeah, yeah, of course. Been very fortunate though to live in Sydney, where for the most part, once my knee was like better in terms of being able to like move around, that the gyms were open. So I've always been fortunate, I guess, to have that outlet once I was out of that like few first months of like pain and able to walk like normal. Um, yeah, in terms of stress, I think I had more stress this past year than I ever had. But I think that everyone can relate to that, whether it's educational, financial, personal, whatever you're going through. But I think it was more so of becoming aware of all the things that were going down, journaling my thoughts. I started doing this thing called 24/6. It's a book which I recommend you read. It's based around the premise to be off social media for 24 hours, 1 day a week. So every day, every week, I'll take one full day off, which has been immensely helpful with like decluttering my brain. I meditate now. I try to go out in nature more. I find that that really helps me in terms of calming and staying connected with my family back home, especially my parents. I think that is something that's super helpful. But it's more so like all those things that I said: drink your water, eat your meals, get your 8 hours of sleep. People know to do these things. It's more so the practicality. That's the hard part, right?
Right. Yeah. I think once you get into your routine, it can become a little bit easier, but it's definitely a shock for a lot of people in the beginning. And some people, unfortunately, may not get out of this new habit of doing nothing. And yeah, finding little things that help you, whether it be just taking a slow walk outside. I think little things like that definitely help. And I noticed for myself, little things like that helped. Before COVID, I never went for a walk outside. I never walked along the beach or in nature, but I think it's something that I've definitely adopted, more so because I had to back then. And it's just something that stuck with me even now when we're COVID free and I don't need to. It's just a good outlet. So I like that. What I wanted to go into, which we haven't touched upon, and I know you post a little bit about this, is the different types of anxiety out there. Do you mind maybe touching upon what types of anxiety out there, and if you could break down anxiety a little bit?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I don't want to come across as a qualified practitioner, licensed in any aspect. So when I speak about anxiety, I speak about it from a personal standpoint in hopes that maybe it connects with someone. So when I think of anxiety, I personally just will go through like day-to-day, I guess, experiences. And I find, as opposed to using maybe like a DSM-5 where like there's a definition of what anxiety is, I just I just come across these, like, I guess, daily anecdotes or daily examples, and when I feel them, I'll jot the thoughts down. And yeah, that's kind of like my premise of like how I like come up with like my video content for anxiety, and like
But maybe get into where you see people going for help. So if somebody's wanting to get help through their mental health, what are some good resources that you have come across through like the things that you've learned
yeah,
that you recommend people going and seeking out?
absolutely. Yeah, so I think it's about the comfort level, right? So
Right.
on social media, when videos or photos or whatever you want to call it go viral, it's global, right? So the hard thing is to direct people to the right resources depending on where they live and the comfort level, whether they want to just seek support from friends and family, whether they want a text service, a phone service, in-person service, right? Paid or free. There's so many. So there's, on our website, Mental Health Movement, there's a global mental health resource. So it goes based on country, then it goes based on what's it, anxiety, depression, bipolar, PTSD, and then the resources that are available, which makes it amazing to be able to just like template respond. And actually, if you want to take action, you can take action. But there's tons of resources depending on the country. That's the whole point I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Because I think it can be hard for people to find resources out there. And I like how I like how social media nowadays, because it is more prevalent, I think people are turning to social media. So there are accounts like yourself and your business that people can turn to find the resources that they need to go to. So where can people find you on social media, your business, Zach? Where can people find you, follow you? Yeah, go for it.
Before we plug in my stuff, I in the Zoom chat, so you guys can't see because you're listening, I put in the resource there. Maybe you can link that somehow to this
For
episode,
sure. Yeah.
or for people who need access to mental health resources. That's the link I was referring to.
Uh-huh.
In terms of me, on Instagram, TikTok, any other platform, Clubhouse, whatever you use, mdmotivator. And our website is called mentalhealthmovement.com. But instead of movement, it's mvmt.com, mentalhealthmvmt.com.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Zach. This was awesome. I think we touch upon a lot of things that I think a lot of people may resonate with. So, yeah, thank you for being on here.
No, thank you, Jordan. I really appreciate that, and hope everyone is doing well and remembers that they matter most.
Awesome. And everybody be sure to head to the show notes and you can find all of Zach's links as well as the link that he has just mentioned. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Now, I have some exciting news that I actually can't speak a lot about, but essentially, I have a new show coming out, a new podcast coming out that I am extremely excited about. I am talking with a few different podcasting networks right now. Just trying to organize everything. So everything is a little bit hush hush. I did kind of make a posting on Instagram a little bit a while back about it, but it is going to be absolutely nothing like this podcast. It is actually an idea that I wanted to do before I started this podcast, but this podcast and the topics that this podcast covered was a lot easier than the podcast that I am creating currently, because the podcast that I am creating is just, there's a lot more work to go into it. So I am so excited about it. It is, again, not going to be anything with health, with fitness, with lifestyle. It is going to be completely different. And I, on Instagram, just did hashtag are you sleeping? Because after listening to this podcast, you may not be. So that's all I can really say about this new show that is coming out. I am so excited for you all to hear it, but I will definitely try to give out as many details and more details as soon as I can. But that is all I had for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will talk to you all next week.